does he do? He might go all the way. He gives it a ride. It's a chance. It'll be a goal. Wants to be rolling through. He can. Cometh the moment. Cometh the champion.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Swans Blog, SwansCast. In this episode, I am joined by Rowan McKenzie. Rowan, how are you?
Not too bad, Justin. Thanks for having me on again, albeit under slightly depressing circumstances.
Yes, definitely depressing. Now, we were both at the game on Friday night, and it certainly wasn't a game that, well, I'd watch a replay of. What about yourself?
I watched the first quarter, just a sucker for punishment, I guess. But yeah, probably after the third dodgy free kick to Dangerfield, I turned it off and did something a bit more satisfying. So
yeah, no doubt. Even at the ground, we were together at the ground, and it was demoralising watching it from the other side of the field. Yeah,
it was just perfect word sums it up. Demoralising. You know, I flew all the way from Perth to watch it, and I was regretting it probably about a quarter and a half in.
Yeah, it's unfortunately for yourself and many others, it was a bit of disappointment. Now, we'll kick off with our heroes and villains. So, do you happen to have a hero of the week?
Hero of the week, probably Josh Kelly from the Giants. Had a massive contract offer there from North Melbourne. Decided to stay with the Giants for a couple of years. Could backfire. He could get injured and blow that money, or his price could go up. But I think he made the right decision. He's probably going to possibly win a premiership next year if they can.
Even this year, if they
even
can
this
kick
year,
going.
they're a sneaky chance here. So if they can work out their mental demons for next year, they're going to be pretty hard to stop. So,
well,
Kelly,
speaking of the Giants, my hero of the week is actually Johnson. And I went back and I watched the 05 semi-final just because I wanted to watch something that was satisfying. And the course of the game
we all need cheering up this week.
Oh, mate, the cheering up was great because I'm watching it and I'm just going, far out. The game is so similar. Like, we fumbled in the 05 semi for the first 2.5 quarters and we fumbled something shocking on Friday night. And then somehow in that game they turned it around, but in this game they just shut the bed. But watching Stevie J do his magic on Saturday night, he just torched the Eagles' defence. Granted, he probably did it after the game was almost won, but he kicked 6 goals. So, goes to show that all the criticism that he had wasn't warranted. Now,
I watched the first quarter before heading to the airport to come back, and I thought the Eagles were a sneaky chance.
Yeah, same.
So I landed and saw the score.
It's a big gap. It was a very, very good win in the end for the Giants. Now, do you have a villain?
I've got a bit of a different villain this week. So my villain of the week is the man sitting in 22D on Jetstar flight JQ328 back to Perth.
I hope he doesn't listen.
You never know. So let me just set the scene.
Yep.
It's about midnight. Heading back to Perth. Team's just got flogged the night before. I'm pretty tired. Sit down in my seat, and the bloke sitting behind me's got a baby with him. The baby's crying non-stop. The guy's kicking the back of my chair non-stop. He's got a case of the man flu, so he's coughing all over me as well. So about half an hour in, I put my seat back to try and relax. I get a tap on the shoulder. Excuse me, mate, can you just put your seat back up?
Oh,
gave him a bit of a look and just said to myself, you are kidding. Put the headphones in and just ignored him. So,
oh, wow.
Villain of the week.
The flog at 22D, was it?
The flog at 22D.
Yeah. That's terrible, mate. That is just the worst way to travel.
No, it was a 4-hour flight, but it felt like 8
yeah.
hours sitting in front of this idiot. So,
especially that late at night, you just want to chill out, sleep. No, not good enough. Now, I have a villain of the week, and I'm going to keep it Sydney related. And my villain of the week is that shocking performance. Enough said. discuss.
So it sounds like you got 22 villains of the week then. Well, 23 if you include the coach's effort. So.
It might be about 30 odd if we include the support staff. It was a really good season. We recovered from a disastrous start to have so much promise in the finals, and then if you look at the game in isolation, it was a terrible performance. But I think it's too hard to look at it in isolation and criticise. I think you have to look at it as a whole. And as a whole, the season was really good, but the performance wasn't quite up to scratch. So
yeah, it was one of the worst performances of the year, no doubt. Even if not the worst. I mean, even including our 0-6. So
yeah,
I mean, we were at the game. We saw the lack of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was evident from almost the first bounce that the pressure just wasn't there. But I think you have to go back several years to maybe 2015 Hawthorn loss, or even further back, like way back into the battle days, or even the days we weren't making the finals.
The old Paddy Best Premier days.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a shocker. So that leads us into the match. I guess a match review, and there isn't really much to review. The highlights was Reid kicked the Swans' first goal, and the Swans drew level after Selwood got an absurd free kick in the midfield that Dangerfield got a goal from. And then the fix was well and truly in from that point on, with Nichols doing his best prick impersonation. He was screwing us 7 ways to Sunday. I have no idea what he was doing half the time, but everything that went bad, he was, in the thick of it. So my only hope is that the AFL realises that he's an incompetent prick and doesn't let him umpire another final this year, if not ever again, because he has proven time and time again to be a useless and utterly dumb prick. So, your thoughts on the match?
Well, I did hear you give it to him a few times on Friday night, and I've got to agree with you.
Even the guys in the crowd were getting it wrong, and I had to correct them.
Yeah, we all give Razor Ray a bit of shit about, making it all about him, but, I mean, Nichols just... You can have it, you can set the tone early and, set the tone of the flow of the game, but he just... Some ridiculous calls. Like you say, the Selwood one early on, there was probably 3 or 4 to Dangerfield.
Well, there was that Dangerfield one when...
turned, straight into goals, so...
Well, remember how Dangerfield got the free kick from Rampy, right? And
was that the one where he just brushed his shoulder blade, that one?
I mean, you could do a more gentle touch to a female, or you couldn't do a more gentle touch, just brushing the side of the cheek. That's how soft it was. And then he played on and kicked a point.
Yep.
But no,
so you think he called advantage? No, of course not.
Advantage was called. It was like 5 seconds between that and the time they scored. Advantage was definitely paid. And then he brings it back because they kicked a point. Yep. It wasn't in one motion. It was dished off, kicked a point. So, yeah, it's, that first quarter was about the best part of the match for us, and it was a pretty bad quarter, to be honest.
I still had hopes going into quarter time. We were only a goal down, maybe.
About 4 points or something like that.
4 points,
I think it was 2-1, 2-2.
We didn't fire a shot. Geelong were playing pretty well, so I thought, all we have to do is turn up and we should go okay, but we just didn't turn up.
No, not from the first bounce, and the good old bomb it long to nobody game plan was, that was back in town. That was definitely in vogue on Friday night, and quite clearly Henderson was having a day out. He had a Griffith game where we made him look like a world champion because no one played on him. So
yeah, it was just puzzling. I don't know what Longmire was watching, because I'm pretty sure 55,000 other people would see that Henderson was, cutting everything off there on the half-back, setting everything up. So I'm not sure why Horse left him there for so long.
Even more frustrating was when Sam Reid was switched into defence.
Yeah, it's fair enough putting him in defence to be the spare man, but he's got to hold his marks. He's got to contest. I think one contest he was too worried about Dangerfield, and I think it was Smith or Stanley just floated over the top,
marked in front of him,
15 metres out, directly in front. So if you're going to be the loose man, at least make a contest, get it to ground at the very least. Well,
he wasn't the only one, but I scratched my head in trying to figure out if there's really anyone who was actually worse than him on the night, and a lot of the ratings that were done by a lot of different sources had him as arguably the worst player on the ground on the night. And I think
He was definitely in the bottom three.
I'm pretty confident in saying he was the worst. I had him on as the worst, even though he kicked the first goal of the game and he had one of the first Swans marks. His play in the second half was diabolical. He couldn't even handle the ball. Literally, it was like he was playing with soapy fingers.
It was comical at stages.
I think he had the ball and then he just dropped it.
He dropped. Couldn't pick the ball up. And that was right in front of us too. So
I know, and it was towards the end of the last quarter where he had no one around him for almost 20 metres, and then he's trying to pick the ball up, and he picks it up and he just drops it. And we just started laughing because it was just that bad.
Just summed up the whole night, really. So
it did, and it was, as far as games go, it's a disappointing way for the Swan season to end. But I've had this conversation with a number of people. I've had it on a little bit on BigFooty. I've had it on the Facebook forums, on Twitter. People I work with. From where we were, I think to even make a semi is just fantastic. So while the game itself, this is what I was saying before about isolation, the game itself in isolation is a terrible game, but as a whole, as far as the season goes, I think it's a very good season considering the situation that the Swans faced them, 0-6, round 7, do or die from, that point on. So,
yeah, I mean, I tossed up whether to have Longmire as the villain of the week, but I mean, like you say, in isolation, he probably was, but
yeah, there's a lot of people who
after 0-6 and we've turned into 15-2. He must be doing something right. So I was one of the ones early in the season that probably wanted him gone.
Yes, I saw that. You had your own little thread on BigFooty, sacked on
posted a thread on BigFooty. Should we sack him? Should we keep him? Should we give him longer? Pretty early on, it was about 50% sack him, but then obviously I looked a bit stupider every week as we kept winning and winning and winning, and that number kept changing and changing and changing, and I think it ended up probably maybe 25 to 30% wanted him gone at the end of the year. So
yeah,
I changed my vote, that's for sure. So
yeah, it's a bit of a surprise, I think.
I still think he struggles a bit to adapt after, if something goes wrong. He's still only got the Chuck Sam Reid down back.
Yeah, I mean, that's
when
almost
he's not taking his marks, then it just shows that you've got to have a plan B and C, and I don't think he really does at the moment.
It seems to be almost like the de facto game plan, just put Reid down back or put Rowan down back and hope for the best.
I mean, it worked in the back half of the season, so I can't say it's the wrong plan, but you need the players to execute, and Reid clearly wasn't executing, so kind of...
And that's something that he acknowledged after the match, that everything that they tried to do, nothing at all whatsoever worked. So...
He did mention they looked tired. I mean, we were at the game, we could see them. I haven't seen the midfield that far behind their direct opponent running, pride ourselves on being some of the hardest two-way runners in the comp. Guys like Hanbury, they were lagging behind. You never see that, so...
No, and players were... I was trying to sort of, go through it in my head after the game, and I could only come to the conclusion that they were about 30% off. Not even a couple of percent. Like, they were a long way off for the entire game.
Yeah, whether they had...
Disappointing.
Whether they had eyes on next week or were the horses right in saying they were just buggered. Yeah, but it was a pretty ordinary show, so...
I'd like to go with maybe they were, mentally shot, and potentially that was just really, it.
I could only imagine how draining it would be to, be up for that 17 weeks, knowing that every week is do or die.
Yeah, and that's, I think, something that gets overlooked, especially on... I know I might be a bit critical of BigFooty here, but it's something that gets overlooked on BigFooty, is that 17 games in a row were elimination finals, and only 2 of those were safe to lose.
Yeah, the best part about BigFooty is after a Swans loss. I mean, you get on there and, guys, the week before, we love you, Sydney, then this week, sack the team.
Yeah, get stuffed.
Yeah. Which is good. I mean, everyone's got their opinion. Emotions were high.
It adds
I didn't-
entertainment
I
value
didn't-
too.
I wasn't on the thread, obviously, during the game or after the game, so I can only imagine what guys like the King or Bedford would have been
Oh,
firing up on
don't call out names. Don't call out names.
Sorry to name drop.
No, I certainly, when it comes to that media, I definitely skipped a few pages.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about Bedford listening anyway, so g'day Bedford.
Well, look, I've got a question from Twitter from Toad Rage. He said the Swans look spooked by danger at full forward. Do you think the soft freeze he got early contributed to the boys' lack of confidence? Do you want to have a crack at that?
Oh, I wouldn't say it affected their confidence. Probably a bit of, here we go again, because it seems to be every time we play. I don't know whether I'm just, a whinging Swans supporter that whinges about the umpires, but
I'm with you. I
to be
agree.
every week. I mean, when I'm watching the game, I've got a mate that I text when we're watching, and it's sort of a running joke now. First quarter, the umpires, there we go. So
there we go.
It's only a matter of time before something happens, and it's just it's to be expected now. So,
oh yeah.
I mean, they said it started last year and then carried on to the grand final. So, we didn't really think it would change this year, and it clearly hasn't.
No. Look, as for that question, I don't think that affected the confidence. I agree 100% with what you said, and to be honest, I think it's one of the reasons why the pressure and the effort just dropped off was, here we go again. It's not 22 or 22.
Yeah.
Because they looked like they were working in the first quarter, and then they just disappeared. It just disappeared after quarter time. Or maybe even 10 minutes before, when Geelong were just getting gimmies. And the interesting thing was, Sydney was leading the free kick count, but they were missing a ton of stuff that should have gone Sydney's way. But at the same time, the stuff that Geelong was getting was hilariously bad, that just never existed. The first Selwood free kick, the Dangerfield free kick on the lead, all the holds.
I think the free kick count was a bit misleading. I mean, we got a lot of free kicks in positions that didn't really matter, whereas you look
on
at
the wings
Geelong
and
free
whatnot.
kicks, 20 metres out. Dangerfield got about 30 free kicks in the first quarter. Of that, maybe one or two was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, just to wrap this up, because we don't want to spend long on this. It's a bad subject, but my sort of read on the game is that I think physically they were capable of doing it. Mentally, I think they were kind of mentally shot by the time they got to the game. It was, so many games throughout the season where they've had to fight the odds, they've had to fight the umpires, they've had to fight the team, they've had to battle all the way through the game, mentally kill themselves to get to that point. And I think the pressure of expectation coupled with the crappy start and the umpires just doing their best to screw things up
I think that was
compounded
the fatigue,
I think it was all mental fatigue. Exactly. And I think it was just mental fatigue than physical fatigue. So, and what do you think?
Definitely mental fatigue. The heads might have dropped a bit.
Yeah, I thought
17,
they did.
18 weeks. It was our time, I guess.
Yeah, and look, at least we weren't the only team that copped a bit of a flogging on the weekend. Unfortunately, we didn't cop the biggest flogging of all. If we have a quick chat about West Coast getting their hat handed to them by the Giants, and they had...
I think I mentioned earlier that I watched the first quarter. Eagles were in it. I think they were only a goal or two down.
Yeah.
Jumped in the taxi, got to the airport, and there was a bloke behind me, the line with the live stream on his phone.
Yep.
And he just mentioned that they were about 60 or 70 points down. I was sort of trying to eavesdrop and listen, but I couldn't believe it when he said it. So I jumped on the phone and checked the AFL website, and there it was.
Look, the second quarter was almost identical. I was really surprised today, even when I had a look at the scores. You're not going to believe this. Our game, it was 52-22 when I think it was Dangerfield or someone else kicked the last goal of the first half to go out to 58-22. In the Giants-Eagles game, it was 55-25 before the exact same thing happened. And I'm pretty sure it was Green who kicked the goal before halftime.
And that was it. Just broke the back. And
the games are almost identical, except West Coast looked like they could handle the ball. They had nothing going forward, and their defence was pretty much at sea. They Giants were really good at isolating McGovern, and I think Grundy cops a bit of criticism for his performance on Friday, but I don't think a lot of people realise that Hawkins dragged him out of position.
Yeah, Hawkins played the decoy role. You could see him.
He did.
He leads to the pockets, opens up the space. I suppose you couldn't see that on the television footage, but
no, you couldn't.
At the
and
ground,
where
it was clear as day. Yeah.
Second level, above where it was happening, there was one instance where Stanley got basically an uncontested mark, I think against Hanbury or someone else, or Papley, and Grundy kind of jogs back into the defensive 50 saying sorry because Hawkins had dragged him about 70 metres outside the 50.
Yep.
And that's just to go with all the other issues, but that's what the Giants did. They did exactly the same with Patton. They played him higher up. They got their other forwards. They played him wide, and then they just let their smalls go. And they smoked them. They looked really good.
Yeah, hopefully they can put up a bit of a fight against Richmond. So, I mean, I don't really want Richmond to make the grand final because I probably have to delete all my social media accounts and stay away from BigFooty for about 6 months.
About 6 years, the fairy tale.
Yeah, just back on the Swans. Yeah, just back on the Swans game as well. I forgot to mention because just the
come on, we've moved on.
Punishment. It just shows the game plan once again. They adopted a bit of that Hawthorn style of the chipping around, uncontested marks, and just carved us up again. So I think next year there's going to be a few coaches trying to emulate that. So.
Yeah,
We may need to figure out a way to counteract that. Otherwise, it could sort of be the kryptonite to take the Swans down.
Well, look, I'll discuss a little bit of how the preseason unfolded and what we did in the preseason a bit later on. But I felt that in general, I felt that the Swans tinkered their game plan to deal with the really fast breaking teams, and in the end, I think we dealt with those really fast breaking teams really well. Beat Essendon twice. We beat the Dogs, the Giants, the Crows, a bunch of other teams. Even Richmond, for example, we beat those teams who played that fast play-on style. However, the possession-based teams, which is your Carltons, your Collingwoods, Carlton we flogged in the last round, but the first one, West Coast even, and Hawthorn we struggled against. So I think there's going to be a balance, and that's where your zonal play comes in and your man-on-man defence as well. But,
I suppose you look at who's going to be the threats for the season.
Yeah.
I mean, heading in, you would have thought the Bulldogs, the Giants, the Crows. So he was right to probably try and counteract that style. Everyone probably wrote Hawthorn off, so
I think
you probably thought you could beat them on talent alone.
I see. I'm not too sure about Geelong because they don't have elite foot skills, and in the games that we've beaten them, they've had way more uncontested possession, but we've been able to hit them on in defence and crowd them out. It's just, for one reason or another, it just didn't turn up and it didn't work and nothing went right.
We just had a shocker, that's all.
It was a
that's shocker. All you can say. It's do or die this time of year. It
wasn't 1 or 2% off, it was a long way off, and yeah, we gave him the game. But look, enough punishment. I don't want to have bad dreams tonight, so
I won't bring it up again, sorry.
No, thank God. Let's have a look at the prelims. So we'll just quickly go over each one of them. Adelaide is hosting Geelong at Adelaide Oval, and I know we both talked about this after the game. We are pretty confident. Well, I'm going to say that I'm confident that Adelaide's going to give Geelong their own hat and wave goodbye as they march on to the grand final. And in the other one, we also have the Giants taking on the Tigers at the MCG, and with the Giants showing a bit of form, there's every chance that they could upset the apple cart.
Yeah, the Tigers-Giants game's going to be closer for sure. I don't think Geelong can match Adelaide. I think Adelaide, probably 10 goals. I mean, I've loaded up on them on the TAB this week, so hopefully they come in. They're only paying $1.40, but I still think that's probably overs.
Yeah,
I just can't see Geelong. I think they played their grand final last week against us.
Yeah, exactly. Just like we did in round one against Essendon.
Yep. I mean, they've probably peaked last week, and Crows will dismantle them on the outside. And as for the other one, if the Giants can get their run going, it could be a pretty entertaining game.
Yeah, exactly. And Richmond have their own issues scoring, and Giants certainly don't have issues scoring. So it should be hopefully an entertaining game. The Giants have a lot of outside runners, and I think if they get on top, they could give the Tigers an almighty hiding.
I definitely think they're within a chance. We'll go back to talking about two-way runners. They've got Tom Scully, probably up there with the Hanbury as probably top 3 in the AFL.
Yep.
Compliments guys like Shield, Kelly, Cornelio, these sort of guys. They've just got the perfect mix. To be honest, I'm probably even going to pick the Giants this week.
Yep. Look, I'm going to go Giants as well. I can't see Richmond. They have the home ground, but I just can't see them kicking a winning score. I can see them competing for long enough and staying in the game and maybe even leading at one point with their pressure if they can bring it again. But they have a big problem scoring. They're kind of like Fremantle, but not as good defensively.
Yeah, you keep Rewalt quiet. You're probably halfway there. I don't think Townsend's going to kick 4 or 5 every week. Martin can't kick 4 and get 35 touches every week. So
no, exactly. And exactly. The best way to stop him is to stop Rewalt. So, look, let's do some quick predictions. I am going to go Adelaide by 5 goals. And I'm going to have Sloane with 33 possessions.
Yep, I'll go Adelaide by 66 points, 11 goals.
Ooh.
And Matty Crouch, probably 35 touches. He'll be the leading disposals.
35,
I just think Rory Sloane has the tendency to be tagged out of games too easily. So
yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to get the job on him, but I mean, you stop Sloane, then you got the Crouch boys.
Well, you got Scott Selwood, so
yeah, Selwood will go to Sloane. He'll shut him down. Sloane's already shown this year that he can't handle the tag.
But even then, you still got Laird and Crouch. So
yeah, I mean, Crouch is, I think he's top 4 of total disposals for the year, I think.
Yeah, and he did a lot more with it than Mitchell did, so...
Yeah, that's right. Old Tom Mitchell.
Yeah, good old Tommy boy.
The clearance king, apparently. So.
Yeah, well, mate, his preseason started early. I wonder what he was doing with himself. But, look, I reckon for the next game, I am going to go Giants by 17. And I am going to say Johnson with 4 goals.
Stevie J again?
Yeah. I reckon he's making amends for last year. As much as I hate the guy, but...
I suppose he's got a point to prove. He's done it on the big stage before.
He's a
great
player.
They call him Normie for a reason.
Bastard. He's a finals player. You don't leave him out for finals.
No, I think he'll be playing another grand final. I'm probably going to go the Giants by 7 points.
Oh yeah, close game.
And Josh Kelly to be best on ground, which probably isn't a massive prediction because he's shown to be one of the best midfielders in the comp this year. So
yeah, no, that's reasonable.
Kelly 30 plus, couple of goals.
Yeah. But look, some of the... I think I'm just having a look at some of the predictions from last week, and this is just how bad they are. Oh, mate, prepare to laugh. So we had the first game, GWS Eagles. Oh, God. Stephen predicted GWS by 10. Stevie J, 3 goals. Josh Kennedy, 2 goals or less.
Was that 10 points or 10 goals?
For Eagles. 10 points. Josh Kennedy from the Eagles for 2 goals or less, and Josh Kelly with 10 votes. I don't know if he got the 10. I reckon Stevie J would have given him a shake. And then I had the Eagles by 3 goals. Nick Nat will play. Lacroix 5 goals.
So you had a shocker there.
Yeah, and I had I can't even read my own handwriting, but Governator 8 intercept marks. Far out. That was so far off the mark. It gets better though. Stephen, Swans by 47. Sinclair 7 goals.
Sinclair.
7 goals.
He didn't have 7 touches, did he? He probably had 3 or 4.
And I think I don't even know where. Oh no, sorry, he had Callum Sinclair more goals than Franklin, but he had
that
two
was a
more
tie,
goals than
wasn't
Franklin.
it?
What's that?
It was a tie. They both got nothing. So
The fuck got nothing. Yeah. Josh Kennedy had 10 votes and no changes, and then I had Swans by 42, Franklin 5 goals. This is where we kind of laughed where he said, "Oh, Sinclair's going to have 7." Towers, another great game. McVeigh won't be injured.
yeah, I thought
So he
Towers
makes his
was gonna,
300.
Yeah, I thought Towers would have a good game as well. I think
Yeah,
on my
he's
match
all right.
predictions thread, the special of the week was Will Towers featuring the coaches' votes. So we all had
unfortunately
shockers
not.
there.
No. But I think our Swans predictions and my Eagles prediction were pretty bad. Pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty ordinary.
Now, looking ahead. So, we have both gone the same way. Crows Giants grand final by the look of it. Now, do you think there's any chance that Geelong and Tigers can make it through?
Anyone's a chance in a 2-horse race, but I think Geelong's played their final already. Richmond, I think, you never know. They could just as easily win by 10 goals as they could lose by 100 points.
Mate, they've got to score 10 goals to begin with.
Yeah, but I think all the pressure's on them. I think they might just crumble. The whole of Melbourne's pretty much on the bandwagon.
It's a sellout again, so...
Oh, that'd be a good show. Another 100,000.
Well, estimated to be a sellout again, yeah. So, I think the allocation for members is already gone. So, again, there'll be about 95, 96,000. And, yeah, I think that the pressure might be too much. And the Giants will want to go one better than last year. Or they might want to go two better, but you never know.
All the Giants need to do is, play to their potential, and they'll win. So...
if they start
a little bit off the boil towards the end of the season, but I think they might just be getting a bit of it back, and it's a scary prospect if they're all up and
save their
about.
best for the finals, man.
Yeah.
If that was them getting close to their best, then if they get on the outside, Richmond are toast. There is no chance for Richmond.
It's almost worth seeing the Giants win just to watch Eddie Maguire's head explode.
Mate, yes.
That's just
I'm
a
with
dream
you.
come true if that happens. Adelaide
It'll be
Giants,
red already, then purple.
all interstate grand final. Eddie's head extra red.
Yep. Press red for Ed.
Press red for Ed's head, and
Yep. It'll be like one of those, click on games on the internet where you click on his head until it pops. But look, if we do have a Adelaide Giants grand final, who are you hoping would win?
I'm not really fussed. Probably Adelaide,
Yeah.
because obviously Giants are the natural enemy.
Yeah.
We don't want to see the little brothers win anything. So, and they'll always be the little brothers because that's how it is. So yeah, Crows by 5 goals.
Ooh, Crows by 5 goals if they get to the grand final against the Giants.
Get to the granny. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not too much against that. And I say that because I'm just going to have a really quick look to see what the actual result was between the two teams. But I think Adelaide will definitely have too much for Giants or even Richmond. I think the winner of the grand final is going to come from that side of the draw and the only reason I can think of as to why is if they have big injuries.
Yeah, they've been the best team all year, clearly.
They have, yeah. Definitely
Best team
have.
deserves to win, so...
Well, they beat them by...
Richmond's going to get an armchair ride to the grand final, really.
Yeah,
so.
if they get in. Well, they gave the Giants a touching up in the first round, so...
Yeah, I think they... What did they end up winning by? 50 points, or...?
They won by, 56 in the first round.
Yep.
And then in the first game, they gave them another touch-up by, 36 points. And the Giants didn't even look like they were going to score.
Yeah,
so the two encounters, they would have to be confident going into that game just based on how they've gone in the last two encounters.
Yeah, before the Sydney-Geelong game, I think the Crows were about a $3.50 flag favourite. After we lost, they went down to $2.20, so it just shows, everyone thinks the Crows. Well, the money's on the Crows, so...
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, now that we've covered that off, let's have a bit of a chat about the season. Now, I don't know if you saw one of my articles today. I wrote about the records over the course of the season and the fact that despite the end that it was, the sort of antithesis ending to a sensational season, the Swans themselves over the last 6 to 9 months have set new VFL, AFL records and new club records. And some of those records are probably going to stand for a very long time. Now, do you know some of these records I'm talking about?
I don't know. Antithesis. You might need to explain that one to me.
I did have this at the top of my tongue, but it's basically like an opposite. Cheeky bastard. But
onto the records.
So obviously everyone knows that Sydney is the first team to make the final since starting 06.
Correct, yep.
Now, the amazing thing about this is a team is going to have to make the prelim from 06, or they're going to have to make the finals from 07 to beat it ever. Because not only
did a pretty special team, seeing as we went 15-2.
I hope Sydney starts 07 next year and do it again.
But we still won't be as brave as the Western Bulldogs.
No, not the Brave Dogs. But but look, starting 06 and then winning a final, I think that is, considering where we started, and at that point even draft picks were on the table to discuss. I think the finish was sensational, other than the actual game itself. And the other AFL VFL record is the highest ever second quarter score in a final. And I had to go back and count it. There have been 637 finals in the history of the AFL VFL. And that is the highest second quarter score that a single team has scored in all of them.
So was that 10 goals, one, was it?
10-3.
10-3.
10-3. And that one's going to stand for a very long time. If you're putting 10-3 past a team, that team is pretty bad. Now, a couple of really good club ones is the Swans set a new membership record, which people know they did. It was 58,838. So, just under 1,200 shy of 60,000. They had their highest ever first half score in a final, 83, against Essendon. That was over the course of the club's history. That's their highest ever first half score in a final. Then they've got at the SCG. These are SCG specific. The highest winning score at the SCG in a final, 121. The largest winning margin at the SCG in a final, 65. And this is another one. The biggest ever AFL crowd at the SCG for that final is 46,323. So the Swans, I think, they've done pretty well this season.
A lot of those come last week, so from chocolate spoiled lollies, I guess you can say.
But overall, it was the season.
It was a good season. Yeah,
it was. The start maybe seemed like the season from hell, but the next 17 weeks seemed like the next best thing.
Oh, they paid us back for the ordinary start. Gave us 15 wins, up and about, clearly on top of the form ladder, 2 or 3 games clear. Just a shame we couldn't sustain it for another 2 weeks and win a flag, but it is what it is.
And given the disastrous start to the season too, and this is something that I think might actually escape a lot of people, and I wrote a review today about this specifically, is the fact that in the preseason, we started off really well. We did our recruiting, our trading, everything was beautiful up until November. And then from November, it just unraveled. So we had players who had to have surgery. Hanbury didn't have surgery, but his recovery was a very long recovery. So Sam Naismith had shoulder surgery. Franklin had knee surgery. Knee surgery or shoulder surgery? I think it was shoulder surgery. Parker had knee surgery. I'm just trying to find it. Gary Rowan had his back issues. Papley had knee, so that's right. Papley had his knee. He had to have surgery on his knee. Aaliyah had turf toe, which meant he couldn't even train. So when he came on to play in like the second round, he was totally unfit.
Kieran Jack's hip yet? That was
did his hip like 2 weeks out before the start of the season and was not fit whatsoever to play.
That was just a glaringly obvious
that was a shocking
injury that was hampering him.
Yep.
People were bagging him out, but he just showed that he's still got a little bit to give when he's fully fit.
Yeah, exactly. And look, this is what I said in the article. I said, at least Sam Reid was fit again and looking sharp in the preseason, while Darcy Cameron was placing significant pressure on Callum Sinclair and Kurt Tippett. First choice Sam Naismith was sidelined due to a shoulder reconstruction he had before the new year. So he didn't even play, I think, until round 8 or 9. But the irony is, Darcy Cameron injured his shoulder. So he did get picked for the first round, but he ended up injuring his shoulder anyway.
He was the big hope coming in.
He was, and he looked really good. So he was out for, I think, the first 6 weeks because he injured it in the first game or something like that and was out 4 to 6 weeks afterwards. And then it left us with Callum Sinclair and Kurt Tippett, and guess what happened?
I think the silver lining from that was Callum Sinclair.
Yeah.
Turned himself into a pretty serviceable player, as the season went on.
Oh, he had to if he wanted to keep his spot. And then Darcy Cameron came back in and did his shoulder again. So it was basically 3 ruckmen, and Sam Reid had to play as ruck too. So even though he kicked, I think, 10 goals or 10, 11 goals in the first 3 or 4 games, and he was looking really good, he was forced into the ruck. And he was contributing almost nothing in the end.
Then the master stroke of putting old Dino Towers into the ruck towards the end of the season.
Yeah, that one worked well. That was when they thought, hold on, we've actually got forwards here. Why don't we play them as forwards instead of in a ruck and burning them? I wonder what could happen.
And we've got a bloke that's got the record vertical leap from the draft. Just give him a chance, see what he can do.
Oh, he gave Bellchambers a bit of a bath in one of the rock contests too. Out-jumped him by about a foot.
Burned into my head.
It's a great image. He's jumped over him. It's fantastic.
He's about 2 feet over his head.
Yeah. It's too bad that he doesn't use that vertical leap to take massive speckies. I think if he was doing that, then people would love him even more. A bit of Howe about it. Jeremy Howe. But, yeah, look, I just want to add this little bit from the conclusion. This is from what we were talking about earlier as well. So about the game plan. The game plan was tweaked to deal with fast breaking plays, switching to zonal structures against teams like the Dogs, Power and Giants. But with players critical for it working missing, it looked like a giant turd pie. The Swans were just throwing unfit players into the fray and praying it would work. Can you argue with that?
Not at all, no. That's a pretty fair assessment.
Kieran Jack, injury. Dan Hanbury was clearly hampered with his knee. I mean, I don't even know why they didn't give him an operation for it. Luke Parker was still dealing with his knee. Kennedy was not fit. So, and then throw in Jordan Foote, Dan Robinson, who went and got himself injured. Robbie Fox.
We can't forget the glandular fever to Heaney as well.
Glandular fever to Heaney, who looked like crap when he came back. Mills was off. Aaliyah was off. Rampy went and broke his arm. Mate, the list just goes on. I mean, we were playing Marsh and Laidler and Malakin almost in the same team. And
I think Talia even got a game at some point. That's how rough he was.
No. He was an emergency like 2 or 3 times, thank God.
Oh, he didn't get a game? Or am I thinking of last season? The Collingwood game?
He played that one game last season that ended his career.
Jeez.
Look, and this is what I concluded it with. Overall, the preseason turned into a significant disaster despite the positive start, with the record-setting membership growth quickly shuddering to an almighty halt just weeks after the season kicked off. This doesn't even take into account the absurdity of the Swans board member Tom Warner's situation and all the nonsense from his sordid affair played out through the entirety of the off-season. I gave the preseason performance a big old D-. I was really weighing up an E. Wasn't quite an F. An F would have been everyone was injured and was pretty close.
Yeah, D's probably fair enough, I think.
Yeah, it's,
You struggle to give them anything better than that.
yeah. Look, considering how bad the season started to actually finish the way they did, I think that's a pretty damn good result. Now, would you like to give us your thoughts on the season?
Yeah, pretty much the same thoughts as yours. The start of the year, obviously, 0-6, everyone knows. It's been covered a fair bit by everyone involved with footy.
Oh, what's that? We started 0-6? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was getting pretty sick of these Owen jokes going around, which...
Hey, come on, some of them are funny, though.
But they dried up pretty quick as soon as we started winning a few, and,
Yeah.
I shared the office with a Fremantle supporter. He was up and about early, but I didn't hear a peep out of him probably from around 12 onwards.
No, not when the Swans overtook the Dockers.
No, that's right. So if you break it down into, two halves, first half, including the recovery from round 7, you'd give them probably a C, and obviously an A+ for the second half.
Yep.
Even it out, it's between a B+ and an A-.
I agree.
I would have liked a prelim final just to tick it over to the A grade, but probably just going to go a B+.
Yeah, look, can't argue with you there, to be honest. And I still have to do my series of articles analysing the first half, second half of the season, etc., so forth. But I agree. The first half up until the bye was pretty ordinary until we turned it around, and then we kind of shot ourselves in the foot against Hawthorn. And that's pretty much like a D, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think we can give the season an A, personally, given you've got to judge it on the whole 23 weeks plus finals.
Yeah. After round 12, including after round 12, including the Dogs win, up until the finals, that's like an A+.
A+, definitely.
Yeah, except for the last game, which was like an F. It's the recovery, the revival, and making the finals and winning that first final, and then setting actual records that are going to stay for a very long time. Hard to look past it, but I agree. Like, the season overall, it's pretty much like a B+ to an A-. It's pretty good when you look at all things, considered. But considering what happened last year, could have been better, should have been better, but I'm happy overall. I'm pretty happy with how it went.
Overall, I'd probably give it the same grade as last year. I mean, we made the grand final, we lost, so we've got exactly the same amount to show from our season.
Yeah.
If anything, we
better
probably
draft pick,
played
though.
better towards the end of this season. Yeah, better draft pick, good point. Not sure how strong the draft is this year. We would prefer it next
apparently
year.
it's not strong at all.
No,
so it's not going to matter.
Draft. Very shallow, so who knows, we might be able to, trade down or trade up, however they do it, and maybe get a bit of a better pick next year. So.
Now, on that, Tom Harley came out today and he said that Alir and Kurt Tippett are going nowhere. Now, Off the table. Now, there is a distinct difference in language when he talked about the two players. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice it, no.
All right, so this is... I want you to... So I'm going to say Alir first. So this is what Harley said about Alir and any kind of speculation about his trade. Alir is contracted. He was the opposite to Kurt in terms of his off-season and pre-season. He had he had a really interrupted pre-season, and his year last year was built on the back of a really strong foundation. He wasn't able to do that, but his form started to really pick up towards the end of the year. We went for a smaller side against Essendon and Geelong. Alir was just on the fringe of that. He's an integral part of not only the next year, but the next 10 years. We've got Heath Grundy, who's been a fantastic key defender for us. He's probably got a couple of years to go, and we see Alir playing a significant part in that transition. So the club really want him to stay for the long term to become a key defender. Whether or not he'll be a key defender is, that's up for discussion, but that's where they look at it.
Yeah, well, I don't think the issue has ever been whether the Swans want to keep him. I think it's whether Alir wants to play more senior footy. So,
yeah, that's true. That's definitely true.
Eagles would be interested. So it's.
It's
probably up to Alir, I'd say, in the end. If Harley's staying a couple of years before he's taking over Grundy's spot, can he wait that long?
Yep.
Or
Well, if he's sooking and complaining, no. Well, he might even request a trade. But I think if he stays, he would become a first-team player. I don't know about McGovern level, but in my opinion, he's a better reader and a better mark and much better skilled than McGovern. McGovern's just a better pure defender than Elias, so there's something that he can definitely bring to the team. Now, this is in direct contrast to what Harley said about Tippett. So he said Tippett had a wretched year. He had a ripping preseason, which is the disappointing part now. He hurt his ankle in round 2, story of his life. He battled his way through that. He's going to require some surgery on his ankle. The extent of that is to be determined. He really battled. I know it was outside of the glare of the AFL media bubble, but he battled pretty manfully to get himself up to play a couple of those AFL games and certainly in the NEFL. So he's going to be better for the surgery and remains an important part of our team. Remains an important part of our team. Not, this is why we want to keep him and this is where we see him. He remains an important part. And you tie in the fact that his contract was extended early this year until 2020 on much more, not beneficial, but palatable terms, more affordable terms. I think he could be moved on. What do you think?
All I can say is I hope he's got some heart surgery scheduled after his ankle surgery because he does not really show a lot of it at times.
Burn.
I think the NEFL, grand final or final, there wasn't a lot of
some ticker required.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, he's got all the tools. He just needs to apply it and not harden up, but just have a crack. You got guys that have got a quarter of the talent that he's got, but they crack in, have a go.
Yep.
And they keep their spot. So, I mean,
well, you look at players like Jordan Foote, who are, they're a bit limited, but in that grand final, he just kept on going for pretty much, almost 120 minutes, almost non-stop. And then, I covered this in the ratings and report. I felt that Tippett basically just went through the motions for 3 quarters before going, oh shit, we actually might win the game. We have to actually play now for 30 minutes.
Yeah, he was a bit of a polarising figure throughout the season. I think it was probably a bit divided, 50-50. Guys didn't really rate him, didn't really rate his work rate, didn't want him in the team, whereas the other half wanted him there. I think it's probably swung to 75-25. People don't want him in the team now. So
yeah, look, I think Sinclair performing the way he did against Essendon, I think he showed a bit of what Tippett should have been able to do, or at least was doing back in 2013, 2014, but just hasn't been able to do since. Especially, I would say, even since 2013, he just hasn't been able to capture that same form. Yeah,
I think he's been a victim of Buddy, no doubt. There's no doubt he doesn't want to be a ruckman. He obviously gets involved more in the game, has a greater influence, but if he can go to a team that just can put him in that forward 50, he could probably be a decent player, but I think pinch hitting in the ruck or even number 1 ruck resting forward isn't really his game.
No, and he's always looked like...
He had some pretty good form when he went into
last
the
year. Yeah, last year he had really good form. He looked like he was on top of everything. Fast forward 18 months and I mean, the guy looks like he can...
I still think he's more suited as a forward. More of a Brad Otten style, yeah.
But even if you go, 18 months down the track, he's gone from looking like almost world beater to a guy who can barely contest a ruck contest. So,
is that work rate? Is that confidence? Is it desire to play at that level?
Maybe the ankle was giving him a lot of issues, maybe more than we can, attribute to. But looking from the outside in, and I agree with you. Looking from the outside in, it's kind of like, does he actually have the motivation or the ticket to do it?
No, I mean, we don't know the bloke personally. He might
be
struggling with other stuff, so I don't want to call him, a pea-heart, but from what he shows, every time he seems to get a chance,
it's not positive, yeah.
It's not positive. But hopefully, I mean, for Sydney's sake, he can knuckle down. I don't know if he needs to do a pre-season with Kieran Jack or not.
Kieran Jack, yeah. Or Dan
Hanbury. Try and work on some work rate there. Because he can be one of the great forwards in the game.
Now, do you see any other sort of transfer targets coming up in the horizon, or do you think Swans will do their best to retain Kurt Tippett and, swat away any kind of interest that might happen in the AFL?
Yeah, well, I think it might have come out today, was that Jimmy Bartell mentioned Liberatore from the Bulldogs.
I'm not a fan of that one.
And that was, I noticed you weren't a fan. It was probably pretty mixed. Mainly around, we've got plenty of that type of player already. We need another one-paced, slow plotter. But I think it's been shown that even when Mitchell was in the team, Kennedy goes down. Mitchell had his chance against Richmond, went missing. We got pumped.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be pretty good depth, but he's probably better than that at a different team. So
yeah,
I'd take him if it didn't cost too much. I'd take him, but I mean, he's not.
Look, I think he's a second or third midfielder.
Yeah,
he's
a bit loose. He's a bit loose for the Sydney culture as well, I think. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. And it's not to say the no DH policy or anything like that. Just, I don't think he'd.
Well, you can't be waking up on park benches out the front of the Crown Casino and get a game at Sydney. I mean, look at
rocking up the training at like 12. Yeah, exactly. Rocking up the training at 12:30 in the afternoon. Yeah, boys.
Yeah.
Doing all the stupid stuff he was doing at the Dogs. The Swans would never play him. I mean, yeah, exactly.
Talia at Sydney. No.
Talia made one mistake.
Jack Watts.
Yeah, so I like this one.
Yeah, I like Jack Watts. I'd love him in Sydney.
Oh yeah.
If it meant a player, Gary Rowan. No, Gary Rowan and our first pick I'd give for Jack Watts.
Yeah, but you'd want to get something in return. You can't just say player plus pick for Jack Watts. The trade that I would do, I would go player swap Watts and Tippett, and pick swaps after that.
Yeah, but no one wants Tippett, so I'm not sure what our first pick's going to be this year. Because they've already got Jesse Hogan. They're not going to want...
Well, Jesse Hogan would play more forward of the ball, like Cameron does for Giants. Plays as like a leading centre half forward. Yeah,
he hasn't got the engine for that just yet. Maybe in a year or two. And they've obviously got Max Gawn.
Yeah.
So I just can't see them wanting Tippett. I mean, it'd be good for us to get him off the books, obviously.
Yeah. Look, I'm just sort of hopeful that if a trade could be done with Jack Watts, even if we kept Tippett, I've got no problem with that. It's just if we could get Jack Watts on the team, I think that would straighten us up and provide a lot of flexibility. It'd allow Reid and Watts to swap it well, because Watts can play wing, centre half forward, ruck. You can pinch hit in a ruck if we really wanted him to. Full forward, centre half back. He can play nearly half the positions, and he's a very good user. But
yeah, I'm not sure where our first pick stands at the moment. It's probably going to be, 13, 14, is it?
13, 14, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is he worth a pick 14? I'd probably take it.
Yeah, as long as we're doing something.
You know, plus a fringe player, maybe a Harry Cunningham or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe some pick swaps later on. But if that was a possible trade, that's the one I'd go for. I think there's more pros than there is cons. And he's not a bad guy.
Jack Watts than anyone else that's available. So.
Stringer's an excitement machine, but he's had a good
Stringer
9-month period. He only had 9 months where he was, ripping it apart, and then he's had all these personal problems interfere with his football for the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, plus he doesn't want to leave Melbourne, so I mean, I wouldn't want him in the team.
No, he's got his 3 kids in Melbourne anyway, so.
Yeah, and I think Miles was mentioned as well from Richmond.
Nah, Richmond can keep him.
Yeah,
he'd be all right.
I mean, if we're going down the Miles route, then we might as well get Liberatore because player.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Miles is probably less of a shit bloke, but or at least
he's still a one-pace plotter. So
yeah, exactly. He'd at least be more reliable. But look, I think that'll just about cover it for this episode. So, Rowan, thank you so much for coming on. Been a pleasure having you on again. Man.
Just can I give a quick shout out just before we go?
Yep, to your girlfriend?
No, my good friend Trevor recently got engaged to his girlfriend Kaylee. So congratulations, guys, and I look forward to the wedding.
Well done. Are you going to invite us all of us listeners?
I'll fly you over, Justin.
Looking forward to it.
You can be my plus one.
My plus one, yeah. I don't know what your girlfriend's going to say about that.
She'll be okay. She can drop us off.
She can drop us off, yeah. Yeah, we're already be drunk by the time we get there. Get out the car. But look, once again, thank you for coming on. And as always, guys, you can follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the tag The Swans Blog. You can always get in contact with us during the week on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, again, using the hashtag SwansCast. Now, even though the Swans are out of the finals, we will be back next week with another podcast. It'll be a pre-grand final podcast, and we will be back after the grand final to wrap up the grand final and everything else AFL related. So stay in touch, get us your questions and comments, and we'll answer them in the next show. Go Swans!